more Euro headaches for the Prime Minister this weekend as he faces a backbench rebellion now in the Commons over plans to allow the government to spend money on campaigning material in the weeks leading up to the planned referendum. Leading Eurosceptic Owen Paterson, who was sacked by David Cameron as Environment Secretary last year, was asked about this when he appeared on the Andrew Marr Show earlier today.
It is unacceptable that there will be no limit to local government, national government, or above all, European government agencies spending money and sending information to citizens. And that is going to skew the whole thing. And the British people have a very, very strong sense of fairness. They will detect that this is being rigged. And if what worries me, and this is an absolutely really, really heartfelt plea to the government, it really worries me, if this is seen to be rigged, if the British people don't sense it's fair, whatever the result, it won't be seen to be legitimate. And this whole issue will fester further.
Owen Paterson on BBC One. Polly, there looks like there's a number of Tory rebels on this issue, but it would need Labour to vote with the rebels. What do you think they'll do?
I think it's possible they might. Harriet Harman's been quite interested on this and said it's very important that this is seen to be absolutely fair, because already John Redwood has said he thinks he wants a referendum every 5 years, the never-endum on this. If there's a decisive result, everybody really needs to know that that's the end of the matter. There will be lots of people looking for excuses as to why this wasn't really fair, why it didn't work. If we're not out, the outs will keep at it.
Yes, and it won't be settled. Tom, we were told that now that it was an overall majority, Mr Cameron, whose reputation for handling his own backbenchers is not great, all the time he had spent dealing with the Lib Dems, he would now spend dealing with his own backbenchers and keeping them sweet and happy. Since then, we've had the argument over collective cabinet responsibility, where we had a U-turn, and he's now wound them up even more by, in their words, they think rigging the spending in favour of the party of in.
It hasn't been a great start for backbench management, let alone ministerial management. And I think that's probably the root of all Cameron's problems in turning what really should be the early stages of the EU referendum bill, which should be the easy, triumphal bit, into an immediate nightmare rebellion territory. We should be facing a rebellion 6-9 months down the line. The honeymoon period really should have lasted a bit longer than this. And I think a lot of it does come down to the initial stand the Prime Minister took on the free vote, where the ministers should be allowed to campaign for out, which of course came to this terrible head at this briefing in Bavaria, which I happened to be at. And what I think the party saw was a return to Bad Dave. This was the Cameron that they thought had long gone, had been dispatched somewhere between the death of Green Crap and the omnishambles budget. Right. Consensual Cameron, who was going to unite the party and take him with him everywhere. The first opportunity he had to do that, he laid down the law in a very old Dave, Bad Dave way. And it's reminded everyone precisely what they don't like about him.
The problem with the two things we're talking about, one, the collective cabinet responsibility, and in allowing the EU and the British government to spend in the referendum campaign, is that both are really assumptions that Mr Cameron is going to get some kind of renegotiation and then say we have to stay in. And that's annoyed his backbenchers and unnecessarily annoyed them.
And the backbenchers have a point that it is tactically problematic if you go into the negotiations signalling that you will support the in campaign almost regardless of what you secure in those negotiations. It's true that it is Bad Dave and he's not very good at party management, but we shouldn't go as far as saying that this is a manageable party. It's not as if he had the perfect chief whip, if he had the perfect parliamentary operation, if he had all the best will in the world, he would be able to keep a lid on internal conservative strife over the issue of Europe. This is an issue that predates his own leadership. It goes back to the late 1980s. And I think there's nothing he can say that he wants from renegotiation that would be enough to pacify somewhere between 50 and 100 of his own MPs, upwards of a third of his own parliamentary party.
So he's lost them anyway?
I think he's lost them almost regardless of how he behaves.
I mean, extraordinary. Between when we were here last week and this week, they're now over half of his backbenchers.
Yes, we had the
joined.
Young Conservative MP saying he had 50. He's now got 110. In a week.
And that's over half his backbenchers.
Labour has some divisions on Europe, nothing like the Tories, but some Kate Hohe heading up a Labour for Britain kind of campaign. How serious is that on the Labour side?
I think the Labour outies are pretty small. I would be surprised if it's more than 20, really. But
Really?
I mean, yeah.
They were talking about 40, but that may be optimistic.
To be honest, likewise, I don't also think there are 110 Tory MPs who will campaign for out either. I think it plays to a lot of people's politics to say, I'll sign up for that newsletter, I'm in your team, but when it actually sort of comes down to it. But what is a more interesting dynamic going on in the Labour Party is what they do for the campaign. Do they stand alongside the Conservatives for those who want to remain in, which would be the large body of the Labour, or do they do their own thing? It's the Scottish referendum, you know, the absolute fear, the spectre, the ghost of the referendum, where, of course, polarised the entire country in Scotland, leaving Labour, we know, in the doldrums when it came to the general election. And they don't want to make that mistake again.
Might actually be better for those who want to stay in if Labour did have a separate campaign talking about social Europe, which a Tory campaign wouldn't really be talking about.
So you widen the spectrum of support. Prime Minister must have choked on his kippers this morning when he heard that Dominic Cummings was going to play a major part in the out campaign. Must have cheered him up. There we go.